"Happy birthday, Mom. This is your new home," said my son, unloading my suitcase at the gate of the nursing home. "Professionals will take care of you." I silently took my bag. His wife smiled. When I entered the director's office, he jumped up in horror. My son didn't yet know that he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. If you like stories where kindness and justice are stronger than betrayal, please subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and write in the comments which country you're from. Enjoy listening. My name is Anna Borisovna, and today I turned 75. The morning of this day was no different from hundreds of others I had spent alone after my husband's death. I woke up to a ray of sunlight slipping through the curtains, lay for a long time listening to the silence of my Moscow apartment. My joints ached like an old out-of-tune piano, reminding me that youth was long gone. I got up, threw on my favorite warm robe, and went to the kitchen. I brewed tea in the same cup with a barely visible crack near the handle, the one Dima, my son, gave me when he was still a schoolboy. On the card, which I still keep in a box, in his childish clumsy handwriting, it said, "To the best mom in the world." I looked at that cup and thought, where did that little boy go? At 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. I knew it was them, Dima and his wife Christina. They had promised to stop by and congratulate me. I opened the door. On the doorstep stood my son, tall, handsome, in an expensive suit that fit him perfectly. Next to him was Christina, flawless as always, styled hair, makeup, and a polite but cold smile on her lips. "Happy birthday, Mom," said Dima cheerfully, handing me a bouquet of chrysanthemums. "Happy anniversary, Anna Borisovna," added Christina, kissing me on the cheek. She smelled of some sharp, fashionable perfume that didn't match the coziness of my old apartment. I invited them to the kitchen, put the flowers in a vase, poured them some tea. They sat at the table, looking around. I knew that look. It was a mix of pity and superiority. They looked at my old but clean curtains, the worn linoleum, the photos on the wall. And I was sure they were thinking, how does she live here, in this museum of the past? "Mom, we prepared a surprise for you," Dima began after a few minutes of silence spent discussing the weather. "What kind of surprise?" I asked warily. "We decided you need a real rest," Christina chimed in. "We're taking you to a very nice place outside the city. Fresh air, nature, care. A health resort." I was surprised. The last time I'd been to a resort was 20 years ago, with my husband. "Well, something like that," Dima answered vaguely, avoiding my gaze. "Pack up, Mom, bring enough for a couple of weeks." Something in his voice, in his shifting eyes, made me even more suspicious. I tried to ask for more details, but they just waved it off. "Mom, it's a surprise. You'll see everything yourself." I went to pack. In my old but sturdy suitcase, I put a couple of robes, a warm sweater, some books, and my blood pressure pills. While I was in the bedroom, I heard their muffled conversation in the kitchen. "She doesn't suspect anything." That was Christina's voice. "Seems like no. The main thing is to get her there. Everything's already arranged," replied Dima. "Sergei Petrovich knows. He'll handle all the paperwork." "We're finally solving this problem," Christina exhaled with relief. "Problem. So that's what I am to them, a problem." I felt a chill inside. I sat down on the bed and for a moment wanted to say no, to refuse, to tell them I wasn't going anywhere. But I realized it was pointless. They had already made the decision for me. I was just a silent object to be moved from point A to point B. I came out to them with the suitcase. Dima took it from my hands. "That's the spirit, Mom. Let's go." We went downstairs and got into their shiny black crossover. I looked out the window at the familiar streets passing by and felt like they weren't just taking me away from home, they were taking me away from my very life. And a cold, sticky sense of doom grew stronger with every kilometer. The car sped down the highway, carrying me farther and farther from Moscow. Urban views gave way to bleak autumn fields. Then came forests, shedding their golden leaves. Christina sat in the front seat next to Dima, scrolling through something on her phone. Dima drove, eyes fixed on the road. The silence in the car was heavy, oppressive. "Mom, how are you feeling?" Dima suddenly asked without taking his eyes off the road. "Fine," I replied quietly. "You've been kind of distracted lately," Christina added, as if in passing, not turning her head. "Last week I called you, and you asked who it was." "I just didn't hear properly," I objected. "Yeah, sure," she smirked. "And when you forgot to turn off the iron. Good thing I stopped by in time." "I didn't forget it. I didn't even turn it on that day," I said firmly. "Mom, enough," Dima intervened. "We're not arguing, we're doing this out of care. It's hard for you alone in that big apartment. There's always something to remember, something to keep track of, and you're not getting any younger." I stayed silent. Arguing was pointless. For the past 6 months, all they had done was look for proof of my so-called senility. Like when I supposedly forgot to pay the electric bill, even though the receipt was right there in plain sight. Or when I mixed up the days and made a holiday dinner one day early. Every little thing, every slip-up, was blown up into a disaster and used as a sign of impending dementia. I turned to the window and watched the trees flashing by. A memory surfaced. Another day, another trip, many years ago. I was about 30, and my husband and I were driving my mother to the regional hospital in our old Moskvich car. She was already in very bad shape. After the stroke, she barely spoke, didn't recognize us. We were taking her to a state nursing home, because we didn't have the money for a caregiver, nor the strength to take care of her around the clock. I remember that day in every detail. Gray, shabby walls, the smell of bleach and hopelessness, tired, indifferent faces of the nurses, and my mother's eyes, empty, faded, filled with silent terror. She died there 3 months later, from sorrow. I still can't forgive myself for that. It was then, standing at her grave, that I made myself a vow. If I ever have the money and means, I'll do everything I can to make sure no old person ever ends their life in such humiliation. After my husband's death, I received a good inheritance, and I kept my vow. I invested all the money into creating a network of private retirement homes. Not for profit, but to ensure the best conditions, the best care, the best treatment. I called the network Zolotai Godi, Golden Years. I never advertised that I was the owner. I ran everything through a holding, anonymously. That gave me the chance to show up at any of the homes unannounced, like a secret shopper, and see everything with my own eyes, without pretense. Dima knew I had some sort of business, but he never got into the details. To him, it was just one of Mom's whims, some passive income that let me live and help him out. He never even suspected the scale of it. "Mom, why are you so quiet?" Dima's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "I'm thinking," I replied briefly. "Good," said Christina approvingly. "Think about how nice it'll be for you to relax. No worries, no problems." The car turned off the highway onto a narrow paved road that led deep into a pine forest. The air got cleaner, filled with the scent of needles and damp earth. A few minutes later, we pulled up to tall wrought iron gates. Above them hung a beautiful, elegant sign. "Private Retirement Home, Zolotai Godi." My heart skipped a beat. I looked at that sign, at the familiar logo, the golden maple leaf I once sketched on a napkin in a cafe, and I couldn't believe my eyes. They had brought me here. To my own retirement home. To the place I had built as a tribute to my mother, as a symbol of hope for hundreds of other elderly people. "Well, here we are," said Dima cheerfully, stopping the car in front of the entrance. "Do you like it?" I didn't answer. I just looked at the neat paths, the well-tended flower beds, the bright modern building with its large windows. And I understood, this wasn't just a surprise. It was a carefully planned, cynical, cruel joke. They had brought me to my own paradise, to make it my prison. Dima turned off the engine. For a moment, we all sat in silence. He seemed to be waiting for some reaction from me, joy, amazement, gratitude. Christina, with a smug smile, stared straight ahead. I just sat quietly, trying to steady the trembling in my hands and the wild pounding of my heart. "Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go." Christina broke the silence. "They're expecting us." Dima got out of the car and opened the door for me. Slowly, as if in a dream, I stepped outside. The air was fresh and clean, but I could barely feel it. All my senses were focused on one thing, the enormous, monstrous betrayal unfolding right before my eyes. Dima pulled my old suitcase from the trunk. "Come on, Mom." We headed toward the main entrance. The retirement home looked exactly as I'd imagined it from reports and photos. Light brick, panoramic windows, a spacious terrace, all built with care and intelligence. With my care. At the entrance, we were greeted by a pleasant woman in a white coat. "Hello, are you here for Anna Borisovna? Please come in." "No," Dima corrected her. "This is Anna Borisovna, my mother. We've brought her to you." The woman looked at me, then at Dima, surprised. "I'm sorry, I must have misunderstood something. We didn't have any new arrivals scheduled for today." "We had an agreement with the director, with Sergei Petrovich," Christina said, frowning. "He was supposed to have everything ready." At that moment, Sergei Petrovich himself came out from the hall, a tall, silver-haired man in his 60s, with tired but kind eyes. I had only seen him over video calls. We spoke once a quarter for reporting. He had never seen me in person, only knew my voice and the surname of the anonymous owner. "Dmitri, Christina," he said, approaching us. "I've been expecting you. And this, I assume, is your mother?" "Yes," Dima nodded. "Anna Borisovna." Sergei Petrovich extended his hand to me. "Very pleased to meet you. Welcome to Zolotai Godi." I silently shook his warm, firm hand. I could see sympathy in his eyes. He thought I was just another unfortunate old woman, abandoned by her children. "Mom," Dima turned to me. His face wore a mask of concern and tenderness. "You're going to live here now." And then he said the very phrase. The one that should have broken me, but instead ignited a cold fire inside. "Happy birthday, Mom. This is your new home." He placed my suitcase on the perfectly clean marble floor. "Professionals will take care of you," Christina added, smiling as she looked around the luxurious lobby. "You'll be better off here than in your old apartment." I looked at them, my son and daughter-in-law, and didn't recognize them. These were strangers. Cruel people, sending me away into exile with a smile, on my own birthday. "We'll be going then," said Dima. "We still need to stop by one more place." "You're not even staying for tea?" I asked quietly. "Oh, come on, Mommy," Christina waved her hands. "You need time to settle in, meet the staff. We don't want to get in the way. We'll call you tomorrow." They turned and walked toward the exit. They didn't hug me goodbye. Didn't kiss me. They just left. I watched their backs as they walked away. The door closed behind them, cutting me off from the past. I stood there, in the middle of the lobby, with my old suitcase. Sergei Petrovich stood nearby. "Anna Borisovna," he said gently, "let me show you to your room. Then we'll take care of the necessary paperwork." I nodded slowly. I knew that now was not the time to show tears or despair. Now I had to be strong. I had to play my role, the role of the abandoned mother. At least until the moment came to show who truly runs this place. Sergei Petrovich led me to the second floor. The corridors were bright and spacious. Landscapes hung on the walls. Live flowers stood in pots. It smelled fresh, with a hint of something warmly familiar, maybe fresh pastries from the dining hall. Everything was exactly the way I wanted it. No smell of bleach, no trace of a hospital. "Here is your room," he said, opening the door. Room 212. The room was small, but very cozy. A large bed with an orthopedic mattress, a comfortable chair by the window, a small table, a TV mounted on the wall, and a private bathroom with handrails for safety. I had approved this design myself, every detail. "Make yourself comfortable," said Sergei Petrovich. "In half an hour I'll come by and we'll go to my office to take care of the paperwork. If you need anything, here's the staff call button." He stepped out, gently closing the door behind him. I was alone. I walked over to the window. It looked out over pine woods and a small lake. Beautiful. Peaceful. The perfect place to grow old, or to go mad from loneliness and betrayal. I sat down in the armchair and only then allowed myself to exhale. No tears came. Inside, there was a strange cold emptiness. No pain. No resentment. Just icy calm. I thought about Dima and Christina. Why did they do this? My apartment, it wasn't worth enough to justify a spectacle like this. My savings, they had no idea how much I truly had. So, it wasn't just about money. To them, I was a problem. A burden. A reminder that they hadn't always been so successful and wealthy. I was their past, something they wanted to erase. I stood up and began inspecting the room. I opened the wardrobe, checked the drawers in the dresser. Everything was new, clean, and high quality. I went over to the bed and ran my hand across the bedspread. Soft, pleasant fabric. I knew everything in this retirement home was top-notch. That was my demand to the management. Half an hour later, just as he'd promised, Sergei Petrovich came for me. "Well, have you settled in a bit?" "Yes, thank you. It's very comfortable here," I replied, carefully choosing my words. We walked down the corridor. I made sure to walk slowly, slightly hunched, playing the part of a frail, confused old lady. I saw how he looked at me with sympathy. We passed by the common lounge. There were several elderly people sitting on couches. Someone reading a book. Someone watching TV. Two playing chess. The atmosphere was peaceful, calm. A nurse came up to me, a young girl with kind eyes. "Hello, Anna Borisovna. My name is Katya. If you need anything, just let me know." "Thank you, Katchenka," I smiled. I could see the staff here had been chosen well. Polite, attentive, without that cold, institutional indifference I remembered all too well from the hospital where my mother died. The director's office was on the first floor, spacious and bright, with windows overlooking the garden. Sergei Petrovich offered me a seat in the armchair across from his desk. "Let's begin. I'll need your passport details and some basic health information." He pulled out a form and a pen. I looked at him and thought, how do I tell him who I really am? Should I say it now? No, not yet. I wanted to see how he would act, what questions he would ask. I wanted to play this role to the end. "Anna Borisovna," he looked at me over his glasses. "Your son mentioned that you've had some memory problems. Is that true?" "Sometimes I get a little distracted," I answered vaguely. "I see," he nodded. "Don't worry, we have excellent specialists here. We'll help you." He asked questions. I answered calmly, softly, with slight hesitations. I could see he believed me, believed in this image of a helpless victim. And that made it even harder. He was a good man. A professional. And he, too, had become a part of this deception, without even knowing it. When we finished with the form, he set his pen down and said, "Well, that's everything for today. Now go rest. Tomorrow morning our doctor will come by for a checkup." I got up to leave, but stopped at the door. "Sergei Petrovich," I said, "would you mind showing me the charter documents of your retirement home? I'm just curious." He raised an eyebrow in surprise. "What for?" "I'd just like to know where I've ended up." He paused for a second, then shrugged. "All right, I'll ask our legal team to prepare copies for you." I walked out of his office. The first step had been taken. I knew that when he saw my surname in the list of founders of the holding company that owned the Zolotai Godi network, his surprise would turn into shock. The game had begun. Back in my room, the first thing I did was take a book from my suitcase. Reading always helped me calm down and clear my mind. But I couldn't focus. The words blurred before my eyes. I thought about Dima. Did he really believe I was sick? Or was that just a convenient excuse to justify what he did? I walked over to the window. In the garden, some of the home's residents were strolling. Some sat on benches wrapped in blankets. Others moved slowly along the paths. They looked peaceful, well cared for. I could see they were content here, and that brought me a little comfort. My work, the thing I had poured my heart and money into, was working. It was helping people. And that was what mattered most. That evening, there was a knock at my door. It was that same nurse, Katya. "Anna Borisovna, how are you feeling? Would you like some tea or a snack?" "Thank you, Kochenka, I'd love some tea." She quickly brought me a cup of fragrant herbal tea and a plate of cookies. "If you need anything, I'm on duty all night. Don't hesitate to press the button." "Have you worked here long?" I asked. "It's my 3rd year. I really like it here. We have a wonderful team, and the director, Sergei Petrovich, is a very decent man. And the residents, they don't complain? Oh no, she smiled. Everyone's very happy. The conditions are excellent. The care, too. Some even say it's better here than at home. She left, and I was alone with my thoughts again. So, Sergei Petrovich really was a good manager. That was a relief, but it also made things harder. I didn't like dragging him into this dirty situation. The next morning, after breakfast, I decided to take a walk around the grounds. The retirement home was surrounded by pine forest. The air was clean, almost intoxicating. I walked slowly along the paved path, breathing in the scent of pine needles. Coming toward me was an elderly couple. They were walking arm in arm, speaking softly to each other. When they saw me, they smiled and greeted me. "Are you new here?" the woman asked. "Yes, I just arrived yesterday." "You'll get used to it." "It's nice here," her husband said. "Peaceful, reliable." I walked on, and the more I saw, the stronger one feeling grew inside me. I couldn't allow Dima and Christina to destroy this. Not just my life, but the work I had poured my heart into. In the afternoon, just as promised, the doctor came to see me. He was an elderly, intelligent man. He examined me thoroughly and asked several questions. I answered honestly, hiding nothing. "According to the reports your son provided," he said after finishing, "you have no serious cognitive impairment. Just a little age-related forgetfulness, but that's not an illness." "And yet my son claims otherwise," I said with a bitter smile. The doctor sighed. "Unfortunately, it happens. Sometimes children see only what they want to see." After he left, I felt a surge of strength. Now I had an expert's assessment, proof that I was of sound mind. Another ace in my hand. It was time to act. I went to the nurse's station. "Katyenka, dear, could you please remind Sergei Petrovich that I'm waiting for those documents we talked about?" "Of course, Anna Borisovna, I'll tell him right away." I returned to my room and waited. I knew this moment would be a turning point. An hour later, there was a knock at my door. It was Sergei Petrovich, holding a thin folder in his hands. "Here you go, just like you asked," he said, handing me the documents. "A copy of the charter documents of Golden Age Investments, the holding company that owns our network." He said it calmly, but I saw the curiosity in his eyes. He didn't understand why I needed this. I took the folder and opened to the first page. Founders. Vorontsova Anna Borisovna. 90%. I silently handed him the sheet. He took it, glanced at it, then looked again, then lifted his eyes to me. His face had gone pale. He looked at me as if he had seen a ghost. "Anna Borisovna," he whispered. Is it really you?" "Yes, Sergei Petrovich," I answered calmly. "It's me. And I believe it's time we had a serious conversation about how I ended up here and what we're going to do next." Sergei Petrovich stared at me, and I could see a whole range of emotions flash through his eyes. Shock, disbelief, confusion, and finally, the beginnings of understanding. He glanced back and forth between the document and my face, as if trying to reconcile the image of the stern, unseen owner he had spoken to via secure video calls, with the quiet elderly woman now sitting before him in a hospital-style chair. I don't understand," he finally managed, sinking into the seat across from me. His usual confidence had vanished. "How? Why?" "Because my own son decided I had become a burden to him," I replied in a level, emotionless voice. "And on my 75th birthday, he gave me this as a gift." He listened silently as I briefly, without dramatics, without tears, recounted the events of the last few days. The surprise, the false accusations of forgetfulness, the cold smile of my daughter-in-law. The more I spoke, the darker his expression became. "My God," he whispered when I finished. I was part of this. I helped them lock you up in here. You didn't know, Sergei Petrovich. You were following the protocol. And, by the way, you and your staff are the only ones in this story who have behaved with dignity." He ran a hand over his face. "What happens now? What are you planning to do?" "To start with," I said, and my voice took on a steely tone, I need a secure phone, internet access, and your office for the next couple of hours." He nodded without hesitation. "Of course. Anything you need." We went to his office. He locked the door from the inside. I sat down in his executive chair. It was comfortable. Leather. I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. Sergei Petrovich handed me his personal laptop and phone. "What should I do?" he asked. "I want to help, in any way I can. For now, just stay nearby. I may need a witness." I opened the laptop. My hands trembled slightly, but I steadied myself. First, I logged into my corporate email, accessible only through special secure devices. I found the contact for our holdings head of legal, Pavel Zakharovich. I'd known him for many years. He was one of the few people I truly trusted. I dialed his number. "Zakharek, hello. This is Vorontsova Anna Borisovna." His voice came back filled with genuine surprise. "Is something wrong? You never call at this hour." "Yes, Pasha, something's wrong. It's exactly what I've always feared the most. My son has decided I've lost my mind." I quickly and clearly laid out the situation. He listened without interrupting, just breathing heavily into the receiver. "All right," he said, once I was done. "I understand everything. What are the instructions?" "First, immediately block all accounts and cards belonging to my son, Dmitry Vorontsov, opened at our bank. All of them. No exceptions. Consider it done. Reason: suspicion of fraudulent activity and attempted illegal seizure of assets. I'll send you scanned copies of the documents they tried to use." "Got it. What else?" "Second, pull up the co-signing agreement on the mortgage for their country house. I was the guarantor, I remember that contract. Initiate the process of termination on the grounds of loss of trust and fraudulent actions by the borrower. Let the bank issue a demand for full early repayment of the entire loan." There was a pause on the line. "Anna Borisovna, are you sure?" Zakharek asked cautiously. "This means they'll most likely lose their home." "I'm sure, Pasha. They wanted to take my home from me. Let them now feel what that's like." "All right. I'll take care of everything. By tomorrow morning, they won't have a single ruble in their accounts, and an official notice from the bank on their doorstep." "Thank you, Zakharek. I'm counting on you." I ended the call. Sergei Petrovich looked at me with a new expression. There was no longer just sympathy in his eyes. There was respect. "You're a very strong woman, Anna Borisovna." "I'm not strong," I replied, gazing out the window, where the sun was beginning to set. "I just don't want to be a victim. I've been one for too long." In that moment, I felt the turning point had come. The scales had finally tipped in my favor. They thought they had locked me in a cage. But they didn't know that this cage was mine. And now I would make the rules. When I hung up after speaking with Zakharek, the office was silent. Sergei Petrovich silently poured me a glass of water. I took a sip. The water was cold, and for some reason, it tasted metallic. Or maybe that was just the flavor of a decision made. "They'll find out about this tomorrow morning," I said, more to myself than to him. "And what will happen then?" he asked quietly. "Panic, anger, accusations, anything but remorse." And I was right. I spent the night in my room at the retirement home. For the first time in a long while, I slept soundly, dreamlessly. In the morning, I wasn't woken by an alarm, but by a deep sense of inner calm. I got up, showered, got dressed. In the dining hall, I was met by the polite smiles of the staff. I had breakfast, drank my coffee, and waited. The first call came around 10 a.m. It was to Sergei Petrovich's phone, which he had left with me. Dima's number flashed on the screen. I didn't answer. A minute later, a message arrived. "Mom, what's going on? My cards are blocked." I put the phone aside. Half an hour later, another call. This time from Christina. I didn't pick up again. Her message was more emotional. "Anna Borisovna, this must be some kind of mistake. We can't withdraw any money. Dima has an important meeting and can't even pay for a taxi. Do something." I smiled. Do something. As if I were some kind of magician, meant to solve their problems for them. By lunchtime, their panic had reached its peak. They were calling non-stop, sending furious messages, blaming the bank, the system, anyone but themselves. They still hadn't realized that I was behind it. They still thought I was just a helpless old woman, locked away in a retirement home. Around 3 p.m., Zakharek called me. Anna Borisovna. It's all done, the accounts are frozen. The early mortgage repayment notice has been sent out by courier. They'll receive it within the hour. Thank you, Pasha. They've called the bank, he continued. Demanded explanations. They were politely told it was part of a review initiated by the primary shareholder of the holding. Do they know it's me? Not yet. But I think they'll figure it out soon. I sat in the chair by the window in my room and stared at the pines. I didn't feel sorry for them. What I felt was bitterness. Bitterness that I had been forced to take it this far. That my own son had driven me to a point where I had to protect myself from him like from an enemy. I remembered him as a little boy. How he used to run to me with a scraped knee, and I would blow on it, whispering, "It'll be better soon." How he would fall asleep in my arms, and I would freeze, afraid to move so I wouldn't wake him. Where did all that go? When did he become this cold, calculating man who saw his mother as nothing but a problem to be solved? I knew the answer. It had happened gradually. First Christina, with her constant hunger for luxury and status. Then their new social circle, where only money and success were valued. Dima was weak. He gave in to that influence. He wanted to fit in. And I, with my old values, my modest life, became a living reproach. He didn't just want to get rid of a burden. He wanted to get rid of his conscience. That evening, I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow, like after a brutal, bloody battle where you might have won, but lost far too much. I had lost my son. Maybe forever. I went to bed early, but I couldn't sleep. In the silence of the night, every creak sounded deafening. I thought about what tomorrow would bring. Tomorrow they would understand. And their rage would come down on me with full force. And I didn't know whether I had the strength to withstand it. But I knew one thing. I will not back down again. I had stayed silent for too long. Now it was time to speak. And let them hear my voice. The voice of a woman they tried to erase from their lives. But who turned out to be stronger than they ever imagined. The morning began with a deafening silence. The phone stayed quiet. No calls. No messages. I knew this was the calm before the storm. They had received the bank's notice. They knew now who was behind it all. And they were thinking through their next move. I had breakfast in the communal dining hall. The other residents of the home were as calm and cheerful as always, chatting about the weather, their grandchildren, yesterday's soap opera. I sat among them, sipping my tea, and felt like a character from a different play. They had a quiet, measured old age. I had a war. Around noon, there was a knock at my door. It was Sergei Petrovich. "Anna Borisovna, they're here." I nodded. I had been expecting them. "They're demanding to see you. Very insistent." "I'll come down in 5 minutes. Take them to the meeting room." "And Sergei Petrovich." "Yes. Please turn on the camera recording in that room, just in case." He gave an understanding nod. "It's already on." I looked at myself in the mirror. A pale, tired face, but with steady eyes. I adjusted the collar of my sweater and slowly made my way downstairs. They were sitting in a small meeting room at a round table. Dima was as white as a sheet. Christina, red with fury. As soon as I entered, she jumped to her feet. "What have you done?" she screamed, not even saying hello. "Are you trying to destroy us?" "Sit down, Christina," I said calmly. "And don't raise your voice at me. How dare you?" She took a step toward me, but Dima grabbed her arm. "Christina, please. Sit down." She gave me a hateful glare but obeyed. "Mom," Dima began, his voice trembling. Why did you do this?" "And what was I supposed to do, Dima?" I asked, sitting down across from them. "Thank you for sending me to a nursing home on my birthday." But it was for your own good, he exclaimed. We wanted you to be taken care of. You wanted to get rid of me, I cut in. And take my property. Christina scoffed. What property? That pathetic little apartment of yours. My apartment, I said slowly. My savings. And, as it turns out, my holding company. The very same one whose bank you so foolishly trusted with your finances. And the house you bought with my personal guarantee. Silence fell. They stared at me, and I saw it. The horror of realization dawning in their eyes. They hadn't believed it until now. That I was that Vorontis Ova. This can't be real, Christina whispered. But it is, came a voice from behind me. Sergei Petrovich entered the room. Anna Borisovna is the sole founder of the Golden Age Investments Holding. Dima buried his head in his hands. Mom. I didn't know. I thought it was just some passive income. You didn't want to know, Dima, I said. It was easier to assume I was just a foolish, helpless old woman. That way, you could justify your actions. What do you want? Christina asked. Her voice was low, but full of venom. I don't want money, Christina. I have money. What I want is for you to understand what responsibility means. That every action has a price. We'll give everything back, Dima cried. We'll apologize. Just please unlock the accounts. We have nothing to live on. The bank's demanding full mortgage repayment within a month. We'll lose the house. You already lost it, I said quietly. The day you decided you had the right to control my life. I stood up. This conversation is over. You have 1 month to vacate the house, or the court will handle it. And now, please leave. This is private property, and I do not wish to see you here again. They looked at me like I was a monster, like a mother who had betrayed her own child. But I knew the truth. I had done the right thing. Sometimes, in order to save a person, you have to let them go. Let them fall freely, so that by hitting the ground, they finally learn to fly. Or at least learn to stand on their own 2 feet. They left, slamming the door behind them. I was alone in the meeting room. My legs gave way, and I sank into a chair. The adrenaline drained, leaving behind a ringing emptiness. Sergei Petrovich entered the room with a cup of hot tea. You did the right thing, Anna Borisovna. I took everything from my own son, I whispered. You gave him a chance, he replied. A chance to grow up. The next few weeks were the hardest. Dima and Christina didn't stop trying to reverse everything. They called me 100 times a day. I didn't answer. They sent messages, full of begging, then threats. I didn't read them. They tried to break into the retirement home. But by my order, security didn't let them in. Then they started working through others. They called my cousin in Saratov, whom I hadn't spoken to in 10 years. Told her I'd gone mad, that I'd been taken hostage by scammers, and they were trying to rescue me. She called me in a panic, yelling, accusing. I had to shut her down, cold and firm. Then they tracked down some of my old friends. Told them the same story. Some believed it. People I'd known my whole life turned away from me. That hurt. But I held on. Igor Semyonovich, my old friend and lawyer, whom I asked to officially handle the case, took over all communication. He was my stonewall. Lena, don't give in, he told me on the phone. They're playing their last card, guilt. Don't let them win with that. One day, Christina ambushed me at the gates of the retirement home. I was returning from a walk. She rushed up to me and fell to her knees. Anna Borisovna, please forgive me. I was wrong. I see it now. Please, don't destroy our family. Dima is on the edge. She was crying, clinging to my coat. I looked down at her, her flawless makeup streaked with tears. And I felt nothing. No pity. No anger. Just a cold exhaustion. Get up, Christina. Don't humiliate yourself. I won't get up until you forgive me. I forgive you, I said. But it doesn't change anything. The decision is final. I gently freed my coat from her hands and walked toward the entrance. She remained there on her knees in the middle of the road, sobbing aloud. A month later, as ordered, they vacated the house. Moved into a small rented apartment on the outskirts of the city. Dima lost his job. He was fired as soon as rumors about his financial troubles began to spread. Christina, so used to luxury, was in despair. I knew it was hard for them. But I also knew this was the only way. They had to go through this humiliation, through this poverty, to understand the value of the things they so carelessly destroyed. Trust, family, love. I returned to my old home, but not to live in it. I put it up for sale. I didn't want to stay any longer in the city, a city where everything reminded me of betrayal. The money from the sale of the house, and part of my savings, I placed in a bank account under Dima's name, but with one condition. He would only gain access to it after 5 years, and only if he found stable employment and completed a course of psychotherapy. I didn't want to give him a fish. I wanted to give him a fishing rod. Not a ready-made solution, but the chance to rebuild his life on his own. The right way. As for me, I bought a small house by the sea, in a quiet little town. I had always dreamed of living near the water. The last time I saw them was on the day I left. I went to their rented apartment to say goodbye. They were sitting at an old, worn kitchen table. Dima looked thin, worn out. Christina, exhausted. "I'm leaving," I said. "Where to?" Dima asked. "To a warm place. To start a new life." I placed a set of keys from the bank deposit box on the table, along with a letter explaining the conditions. "This is for you, Dima. Your chance. Whether you use it or not, that's up to you." He silently took the keys. "Mom, thank you," he whispered. "For nothing," I replied. "Just live, and try to be truly happy." I left without looking back. I knew I was leaving behind not just the city, but an entire life full of pain and disappointment. But I also knew that something new was ahead of me. Something peaceful, and maybe even joyful. My new house by the sea was exactly as I had dreamed. Small, one-story, with a big ivy-covered veranda, and a tiny garden full of roses and lavender. The windows faced the beach, and each morning I woke to the sound of waves, and the cry of seagulls. I lived alone, but I was not lonely. I took long walks along the shore, collected seashells, breathed in the salty air. I started painting, bought myself watercolor paints, easels. I spent entire days on the veranda, trying to capture the shifting colors of the sea. I wasn't very good, but I loved the process. It calmed me. It brought peace to my soul. I stopped following the news from Moscow. I didn't know how Dima and Christina were living. And, to be honest, I didn't want to know. I had given them their chance, their path. From here on, they had to walk it themselves. Sometimes, Igor Semyonovich would call, updating me on the holdings affairs. Zolotai Godi was thriving. Sergei Petrovich had proven to be an excellent manager. I felt at peace about my life's work. 3 years passed. I had grown used to my quiet new life. I made friends with my neighbors, an elderly couple, both artists. We often had tea together, discussing books and paintings. I felt happy. Yes, truly happy. A calm, quiet, peaceful kind of happiness. One day, on my 78th birthday, I sat on the veranda, painting the sunset. The sun slowly dipped into the sea, painting the sky in unbelievable shades of pink, orange, and violet. Suddenly, I heard a familiar voice at the gate. "Mom." I turned around. At the gate stood Dima. He was alone. He had changed a lot. He looked older, more mature. The uncertainty in his eyes was gone. In its place, calm and confidence. "May I?" he asked. I nodded. He stepped into the garden and approached the veranda. In his hands, he held a small bouquet of wildflowers. "Happy birthday, Mom." He handed me the flowers. I took them. Daisies, cornflowers, bellflowers, my favorites. "Thank you," I said quietly. We sat in silence for a long time, looking out at the sea. "I found a job," he said finally, "at a small construction company, as a manager. The pay isn't great, but I like it. I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm happy for you, Dima. Christina and we divorced." I said nothing. She couldn't live without luxury. I realized I don't need it anymore. He looked at me. "I used the chance you gave me, Mom. I went through therapy. I learned a lot, about myself, about Dad, about you. I was a terrible son. Forgive me." Tears welled in my eyes. But they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of relief. "I forgave you a long time ago, my boy," I said. He came closer and hugged me, tightly, like when he was a child. And I hugged him back. "Can I come visit sometimes?" he asked. "Just to be with you." "Of course," I smiled. "My home is always open to you." He left the next day. And I stayed. Stayed in my little house by the sea. With my paints. With my roses. With my peace. I knew the past hadn't disappeared. It would always be part of me. But it no longer defined my life. I hadn't defeated them. I had defeated myself. My fears. My pain. My need for others' approval. I had found something far greater than money or houses. I had found myself. And that was the greatest victory of my life. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment. Your words are the greatest reward, and the deepest inspiration to create more stories like this. Stories about life, about struggle, about the truth that hope always remains. These aren't fairy tales. This is life.